New Illinois teacher standards encourage progressive worldviews in the classroom, as if teachers need yet one more mandate to teach politics over subject matter. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and what is going on with this business? Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today, we start in Illinois, where newly proposed education standards will encourage teachers, promote and encourage teachers to embrace and promote progressive talking points in the classroom. So literally now they are spelling out in the regulations that you are going to turn your kids into progressive robots. That's what we do here.
So this was brought to light basically with NPR and the Center Square, the Illinois Pro-Family Alliance and the Thomas More Society. They contend that the culturally responsive teaching and leading standards for all Illinois educators are unconstitutionally vague and amount to a form of compelled speech. Now, what are we talking about? What's the specific text that they're referring to? Well, here it is. Educators will embrace and encourage progressive viewpoints and perspectives that leverage asset thinking toward traditionally marginalized populations, as well as to understand and value the notion that there is not one correct way of doing or understanding something, and that what is seen as correct is most often based on our lived experiences.
So we're going to leverage our intellectual assets away from traditional knowledge and towards progressivism, and then we're going to tell them that things are never what they seem. There's more than one ways of doing things, but everything has to be progressive. So you're swinging this to progressivism. We're going to have our teachers bias the classroom in favor of progressivism, even as they're telling kids there's more than one way to see things. How exactly is that going to work in the classroom?
Every school child from now, if in Illinois, from here on out, just needs to say, this is my lived experience.
Well,
no matter what they put.
Yes, but
that's what I know where you're going to say it's only for the progressive viewpoint. Yes, I understand.
What if my lived experience is white? Well, then you're racist, right?
Anyway, the proposal states that program and course content shall be based on the standards in the rule. So, Illinois teachers, this one is for you. They actually say that the Illinois State Board of Education, the spokesperson, Jackie Matthews, said these proposed standards are developed by the educators and for the educators. Nowhere in there does it say for the students, for good education, but it's for the educators, by the educators, and who cares about students.
So this is a tantrum that they're actually going to win. We don't want to teach actual history. We do not want to make them like their country. We do not want to even waste time teaching them how to read and write. We want to use our classroom time to redress evil racism by transforming the entire way we look at everything.
And this is about years ago already when I was told I need to write a reflection paper about how being a teacher is a profession and we should be considered professionals. I rebutted it and said no, because all they're doing now to teach teachers, to indoctrinate the teachers, to indoctrinate the students,
right,
is you have become a facilitator, because this type of garbage that they're going to put into your school saying, well, every answer is good because it's based on your lived experience.
Unless, never mind. My other point is that point that you just made. You're a professional for getting a 4-year undergraduate degree. That's like saying a doctor, somebody who studied pre-med for 4 years is a professional and should go off and be a doctor. Hey, all you need to be a lawyer is 4 years of undergrad.
Well,
I'm sorry, a 4-year teacher with a degree in education is not an expert in anything.
I would like you to address me from here on out as Master Katie. Thank you.
Master Katie?
I mean, you're Dr. Duke, so I would like to be Master Katie. If you needed any inspiration whatsoever to get your kids out of New York City schools, well, let Megyn Kelly be that inspiration. She's a former Fox News host, journalist. She's actually decided, you know what, I'm going to pull my kids out, at least my boys, out of their school after they promoted to reform white children. So at Megyn Kelly's school, the boys were going to be taught how to reform white children. And the school accused white people of reveling in their state-sanctioned depravity and slaughtering black people. You know, it's great that New York City schools are teaching kids all this. So Kelly actually talked about a letter that the school administrators had circulated. It was among the parents and the faculty, and she talked about this on her podcast called The Megyn Kelly Show.
We're going to leave the city. And we pulled our boys from their school, and our daughter's going to leave hers soon too. This summer, in the wake of George Floyd, they circulated amongst the diversity group, which includes white parents like us, just people who want to be allies and stay attuned to what we can do, an article. And afterward, they recirculated it and wanted every member of the faculty to read it. It was written by a woman named Nalia Weber, who says she's the executive director of the Orleans Public Education Network. She works in education advocacy. And here's the last part. This time, if you really want to make a difference in Black lives and not have to protest this again, go reform white kids, because that's where the problem is, with white children being raised from infancy to violate Black bodies with no remorse or accountability.
I'm a little bit concerned about Megyn's position as you can't be an ally with what they're doing in the public schools. This idea that we're going to be allies with crappy pedagogy and political unteaching, if you will, is a bad idea. I don't care how much sympathy you may have. The fact remains that you can't ally with anti-humane educational practices. That's the first thing I would say. Second thing I would say about this is it wrong to point out that reaching inside the Black body of a Black woman to destroy her child is an actual violence against Black bodies, both the mother and the unborn child?
Well,
is that not true?
Well, yeah, and would you like a couple more examples from that letter? Because Megyn only read that one statement, which was, she said at the very end of the letter, but some of the other examples included, there is a cop killer, or a killer cop. There is a killer cop sitting in every school where white children learn.
So, and the other thing is how would you feel, Mom and Dad, if what your kid came home and told you from school is that our teacher said that cops are killers, and at least one white kid in this class was going to grow up to be a cop that kills? That's what their baggage they're laying off on your kids.
Oh, yeah. And then also, here's another statement. They gleefully soak in their whitewashed history that downplays the Holocaust of indigenous Native peoples and Africans in the Americas. They happily believe their all white spaces exist as a matter of personal effort and willingly use violence against Black bodies to keep those spaces white.
Explain to me what this violence against Black bodies is. Explain that to me.
Well,
you can't just say stuff like this. In fact, they have to keep repeating it because they have no evidence of it.
And that's why they then also add, as Black bodies drop like flies around us by violence at white hands, how can we in any of our minds conclude that whites are all right?
You cannot give us a single example of disproportionate violence against Black bodies by white people.
Well, she argues that white children are left unchecked and unbothered in their schools, homes, and communities to join, advance, and protect systems that take away Black life.
What does teaching white kids differently have to do with what is or is not happening now to Black bodies?
Here's what I will say is that white children are being, in their schools, encouraged to join, advance, and then take away Black life via Planned Parenthood coming into every one of these schools.
The only example you have. The only example
and
you have.
And you encourage it, people. That's what they encourage it.
Anything like significant numbers of Black bodies being destroyed by white people is abortion. That's the only one. When you think about the disproportionate abortion of Black babies in places like New York City, that is, and those doctors are mostly white, the destruction of that life, and that's the one kind of killing you support. You are 100% behind a Black woman's right to destroy her baby. Give me just one example of anything systemic that shows that whites are destroying Black bodies. It does not exist. It's a bold-faced lie, and it is the lie, as we've been warned by Orwell's and others, just keep telling the lie. Yep. Just keep blaming those Jews in World War II. Just keep blaming the middle class in Soviet Russia. Keep doing it. You keep doing it long enough, and murderous thugs will come to believe it. Now you're forcing this garbage on 7 and 8 years old. 8-year-old, and Megyn, you got a lot of money from your settlement with Fox. You are a rich woman. What do you even have your kids in these schools to begin with? Why don't you fine for them? I guess you're going to do it now, but how much damage is already done? With your resources, there's no reason on this earth why your kids ever should have been acclimated around that stuff.
And to go back to, and this is Nalia Weber, who's the one who's been saying all these statements, not to be confused that Megyn was saying these, but her kids were being
Why are you
introduced to this type
this ally stuff?
But this Weber, because, you keep saying that you want to provide the evidence. You know what? She wants the evidence too. So she says, where are the government-sponsored reports looking into how white mothers, if you're a white mother out there, listen up, how white mothers are raising culturally deprived children who think Black death is okay. I am a white mother, and I do not think Black death is okay. I'll say it right now. I'll say it again. Black death is not okay. White death is not okay. Death is not okay.
But see, Katie, unless you teach your kid to hate white people, to hate herself, to hate her country, to hate you, unless that's what your kid believes, you are complicit in the destruction of Black bodies. Whatever the hell that means. No one has ever explained that to me. Again, let's call things what they are. There are more Black bodies physically harmed and killed by Black people than by anybody else. That's a fact. If you look at cop killings, more white people die from cop killings, even unjust ones, by a far measure than blacks do. You have no metric to be able to say this. None whatsoever. You keep repeating it, and sadly, you've got all of these so-called smart educators and media types like the New York Times. What a profound statement. And we don't ask it to be proven.
Of course not.
What kind of a message is that? It's an anti-education message. It is, for lack of a better word, a Soviet message, right? There's one answer, the party. The party is the thing. Our party is the Progressive Party, and the party is the thing. What the party says is what's true, even if they're contradicting himself from one minute to the next. You will speak only what the party says, or else.
I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it. Book bans are back.
You just stole that from a Black woman.
The
Pointer Sisters. Culturally appropriated.
It's a great song.
You're just participating in Black bodies.
I know. I think
ahead.
I like it. As if kids read books anymore, it's kind of funny to me that we're doing book bans again. I mean, book bans have been, there's people try to ban every book every year, but you know what? Burbank Unified School District in Burbank, California, you have my heart right now because you are instructing your teachers to suspend the teaching of 5 specific books. Here they are. Oh, of course, this is pending review, of parents. The parents complain, so we will ban books that are classics if parents complain.
Right.
But sex ed in every classroom and LGBT everything and everything but actual anything of education, we're okay with.
So if a mom complains about Huckleberry Finn, a book
How dare you give away the list?
If a mom complains about Huckleberry Finn, a book written to fight racism, it's going to immediately be on the ban list. But if somebody protests Johnny's mom's got 3 penises in kindergarten, well, that one gets to stay because it's broadening the horizons of children.
Diversity. Well, this specific ban on these 5 books, I keep teasing it. Which ones are they? He gave away one. But they're removing the books temporarily because the challenges came from a group of 4 parents, 3 of whom are Black. And they're saying, it's racism and all that. So here, drum roll, are your 5 books being temporarily banned.
That was the phlegmiest drum roll I've ever heard.
I don't have it. Give me an actual drum. I'll Phil Collins this. Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird.
Of course. Another book written specifically to combat racism.
As you already said, Mark Twain's The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn.
Which African-American novelist Ralph Ellison said was the most moral book on race ever written.
Here's a good one, though. John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men.
Yep. I guess because it has an improper way of viewing mental. I guess we can't use the word retardation anymore.
Well, it's a scientific term. Yeah,
right?
you could. But
I guess you could. What else?
Anyway, Theodore Taylor's The K.
Okay, don't know that one.
And Mildred D. Taylor's Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. Mildred D. Taylor is a Newbery Award-winning African-American author. But nope.
She's getting sent.
You are being banned.
This is what happens when you raise generations of parents who are illiterate. All they see is words. They don't see stories. All they see is references. They don't see narratives. All they understand is ink and paper. They don't have any reading comprehension or critical thinking. And they're passing this on to you now as educators who refuse to teach kids critical thinking or context or sophistication when it comes to understanding narratives. So it's a vicious cycle. And if you're banning things like Huck Finn, it's over. There's nothing you can't ban. Nothing at all. Why don't we just have them read starting in kindergarten all the way through high school? Have them read nothing but Mao's Little Red Book. every single year, have them read Mao's Little Red Book.
Well, they wouldn't be
Nothing
able to
else.
get through the whole book because they only do little passages.
Does it matter?
Anyway.
Does it matter?
It doesn't. I'm just saying that's
I mean,
why
we're
you
gonna
could
pass you
get away.
anyway.
Exactly. Well, so the parents say there are racial slurs in the book. So obviously they picked up the book and went,
Right.
racial
exactly.
slur. They say also it has the white savior storyline, especially in Huck Finn and in To Kill a Mockingbird. And Carmenita Helliger is one of the parents who challenged the inclusion of the books. She was talking about her daughter Destiny, saying that Destiny was targeted by other students. Destiny told her mother that a student approached her and called her a racial slur that the student allegedly learned from Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. And again, that's the book written by the Newbery Award-winning African-American
because
author.
these black kids could not have heard racial slurs listening to rap music.
No.
Not
all.
Gangster rap, hip hop. No. We know that those kids culturally would never have heard that by sitting courtside at an NBA basketball game. No.
That too.
No, it's only from the literature, don't you see?
Of course. Mom said, "My daughter was literally traumatized. These books are problematic. You feel helpless because you can't even protect your child from the hurt that she's going through."
Right.
So much that we could talk about with that line, Mom, having your daughter in a Burbank school in California.
Burbank, California. These are yuppie moms now, who, like you said, you didn't say it, I said it. Like I said, this is simply opening books and finding the words they don't like and having no contextual or historical background to be able to process what's happening.
Yes.
By that argument, you have to close down the Holocaust museums.
Uh-huh.
My daughter learned about human beings being made into lampshades at the museum.
Mm-hmm. Close it down.
It was at the museum that my son's friend learned the word, a slur for Jew, and called my Jewish son that slur. At the museum. We can't have this. We have to get rid of these things, right?
Well, parent Nadra Ostrom said that this portrayal of black people is mostly from the white perspective. There's no counter narrative to this black person dealing with racism and a white person saving them. The education that students are basically getting at that is that racism is something in the past. And Ostrom then said, and that's not the conversation that we should be having in 2020.
Right. So only books that deal with right now are allowed to be read.
And they're not going to know any context.
Well, that's exactly
or
right.
History.
And that's why you get schools in New York telling kids in the classroom that a white kid in this class will grow up to be a cop and kill black people.
And that's why then the fact that she says this at the end, unless teachers have been specifically trained to teach these texts through an anti-racist lens, they're probably reinforcing racism rather than dismantling it. No, you are indoctrinating your kids. That's what you're doing by being trained in this anti-racist. Instead of teaching the book for what it is, and students, you think critically, think about it, and be able to digest the information and come out with something on the other end for yourself.
What a damning statement. That unless the only way you're allowed to teach any book that doesn't conform to the modern politics of today is if you demolish that book. How many times have I gotten in trouble at the university for that?
97,822.
For refusing to read books through the lenses of modern grievance politics. It's okay to teach Shakespeare if all you do is tell kids how racist, sexist he was, how overrated, and the only reason we read him is because of white privilege. If I teach Shakespeare for that, I'm okay. But the minute I let Shakespeare have his say, that's what you hear. What a damning comment. That the only way you should be allowed to teach books like this if you are going to completely undermine what they say. And if that's where we are, better not read them at all. If the only purpose of reading the classics is to point out how bad the classics are, I agree with you. Time to get rid of all of them.
It's time for some real education. Liberty Leading the People, painted by Eugene Delacroix, commemorates the July Revolution of 1830 that toppled King Charles X of France. A woman of the people with a Phrygian cap, personifying the concept of liberty, leads a group of people forward over a barricade in the bodies of the fallen, holding the flag of the French Revolution, the tricolore. The figure of liberty is also viewed as a symbol of France and the French Republic known as Marianne.
Right, and so this is one of the great rallying cry pictures, paintings from the era of French greatness. Take a look at the picture. Here you have Liberty, right? Liberty leading the people, and you can see that she has one breast almost all bared. That, of course, I think is an homage back to the Greek notion of the Amazons, that fierce tribe of women warriors who always hunted with their breasts exposed. And there she is as the sign of a strong woman. She is holding a tattered tricolore, the flag of France that was reinstated after it had been pulled down. That was the flag that came to us during the French Revolution. As the French Revolution became worse than what they were rebelling about, the French moved beyond that. And here in 1830, they flew it from Notre Dame Cathedral again for the first time. Meaning that from that time forward, this would be the official flag of France. And it's a revolutionary flag, very much like the American flag was a revolutionary flag. And it's really kind of a really moving portrait. It's very, back in a time when patriotism was not considered jingoism, not considered xenophobia and racism, when it was okay to be proud of your country, you see Lady Liberty leading the middle and lower classes of France over the bodies of those who would privilege only the higher classes. Delacroix started painting this after witnessing the violent escalation of protests against a set of restrictive ordinances that Charles X of France had issued in July of 1830. Take a look, by the way, of the related picture. The image of Marianne, the woman, Lady Liberty, has come to be affectionately known by the French as Marianne. And there's Marianne, another version of Marianne in 1940, when the French were fighting for liberation against Nazi occupation. La liberté pour la France. Liberty for France, les libertés pour le Français. Liberty, freedom for France, and freedom for the French. So there she is again wearing that Phrygian cap from ancient Greece, and there is your tricolore. Delacroix finished painting this in 3 months. He was so inspired, and it was shown with 23 other revolution-inspired works at the 1831 Salon in Paris, an annual exhibition of French art held at the Louvre. Yet Delacroix, by combining realism and idealism and by applying his characteristically expressive brushwork, he created a more modern scene, one that contrasted with those of his competitors. Contemporary critics and viewers were nonetheless divided on whether the painting was heroic or distasteful, and depending upon your politics, if you are a anti-French revolutionary trying to tear down French culture, probably don't like it either.
All right, before we go, just a reminder that the best way to keep up with our various shows at Freedom Project is to follow us on Parler. So take a whole whopping 10 seconds of your day and follow at Duke Pesta, at Katie, and at Freedom Project. We put some good things on Parler that we may not put on any other social media platforms. Now, if you're a fan of the show, and you should be, please consider a one-time tax-deductible donation to support the Patriot Club, and we're going to send you an awesome tumbler that says freedom. Never tasted so good. All you have to do to sign up is visit patriotclub.us. That's patriotclub.us. Now, as we always do, we like to wrap things up with our fun fact of the day. In the past decade, the most banned book has been The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. I read the book. I could see why they want to ban it, but it's still kind of funny. Number 2 was Captain Underpants series. Do you know Captain Underpants? It was after my time. But anyway, the series is by Dav Pilkey, and if you've read it, I don't know what to say about it. But we really can't ban old books as much because, again, kids don't read them in the first place, so we're going to pick all the newer books out now to ban.
Was Captain Underpants the spawn of SpongeBob SquarePants by any
Maybe
chance?
it was. I'm not quite sure.
And that wraps it up for the show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, vive la France, mes amis.